What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Girl Dating Podcast with two girls and their dad. I am Kanaya. We have Kiani and we have
Hey.
our dad, Marcel. And Kiani's getting ready to tell you about this episode for this week.
So this episode is going to be centered around our parents. So we're going to talk about my dad, his upbringing, and how that influences his girl dating. And then we're going to swing it over to my mom so she can talk about how her upbringing influenced how she wanted our dad to be a girl dad. And we're going to jump into that. Go ahead, Nai.
So this week we have a very special guest. It is the queen of the Kirk Castle, our mommy and our dad's wife. Go ahead, mom, introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm ErnNesha, the mom.
All right, guys. So without further ado,
Let's
take it away, Dad.
Well, this episode, we're going to focus on how the seeds were laid in my life for me to become a girl dad. And so we've asked ErnNesha, whom we affectionately call Mommy, since Kanaya came, to come and share her experiences growing up and the expectations she may have had for whomever her children's father was. Obviously, that's me now. And just get an idea of what impact her upbringing has on my parenthood. So just a couple of quick biographical facts about myself. Born and raised in Chicago. I grew up when I was born on the east side of the city in the Jackson Park neighborhood. Stayed with my mom and my dad. I have an older sister. My parents split when I was 4. And so my mom took my older sister and me, and we moved into my my grandmother's house. And then a couple of years later, my younger sister came. And so for the first 17, 18 years of my life, I lived in a house dominated by women. My mom, my grandmother, and then my two older sisters. My older sister, my younger sister, lived in the house together. I shared a room with my uncle for a period of time, but my life is surrounded by women. So my grandmother, as I said in the first episode, very instrumental in my life, growing up with my mom, my older sister. So I've always had strong Black women, older women around me. We moved, well, then I went to school. And so coming back from school, started dating, met my wife. We knew each other from some high school days at the same church. Then we started dating, talked about having children, talked about getting married, things of that sort. In reverse, in the other order, I should probably say that. Talked about getting married first and then having kids. And sure, absolutely.
I really would like to say that our conversation about kids was not as extensive as it was about getting married.
Of course not.
It was real like, do you want to have kids? Maybe, guess so, we'll see. I really felt like that was our conversation about kids.
Probably was. I listen. It was so long ago. I have no reason to doubt you. But having those conversations and understanding where I come from, having a grandmother with a very strong personality, having a mother with a very strong personality, having an older sister to whom I looked up, who was my role model, my hero. I wanted to be everything that she was: intelligent, that she was formidable. So she set a very good standard for me. And so having all of those things in my background when I got married and when I had children, those are some of the imprints that my family left on me. And so that really guides and steers the way that I parent. It also has an impact, obviously, on the way I relate to my wife as a spouse. And so those are some of the things we're going to talk about in more detail. And we wanted to bring ErnNesha on so, again, she can share her perspective of how I have evolved as a girl dad. And so I'm hopeful this episode will shed some light on the historical impact that our families have on us as we transition from adolescence into young adulthood, eventually into marriage and having a family.
All right. So I guess our first question will be, Mom, tell us about your relationship with your dad and how that formed what you wanted out of your kid's father.
Well, I had a pretty basic relationship with my dad. When I say basic, it was pretty much my dad and my mom. Both are from the South, very old school. So a lot of the conversations, communication was very structured, and we didn't talk about everything. So some things I had to learn on my own. Others I got a little bit of a basic from my family, from my mom and from my dad. But one thing about my dad though, he worked all the time and he was very protective of me. So in a lot of ways I was sheltered about a lot of different things. And so as I got older and got into high school, it's just certain things I just didn't talk to my parents about. So one of the things that I really wanted Marcel to be able to do with you girls is be very open for conversation about anything. I didn't want you guys to be afraid to have a conversation with us, and especially him as your dad, because I knew I probably would force myself on you and be like, okay, let's talk about this, because I didn't get that. And so I've spent a lot of time really trying to encourage him to have different conversations or not to be afraid to have certain conversations with you guys as you were growing up and to be involved in your lives, i.e., any activities you were in grammar school, field trips, things like that. It should not always be me doing it as the mom. I wanted him as a dad to be involved. And I just felt like having your dad present would mean more for you as you got older.
I think that's a good point in terms of presence. As I've said, my mom and my dad split when I was very young. I think I was 4. And so my sisters did not grow up with our father in the house. And so one of the things I wanted to be sure that I gave to my children, whether they were girls or boys, was to have their father in the house with them. And that was one of the things that you and I did talk about before we had children, before we even got married, was the importance of having a 2-parent household, so that one parent did not have the burden of having to do all the things, having to be everywhere, having to make himself or herself available, and splitting time across children. That was important for me because I wanted my children to have something that I didn't have. I also understand, based on some of the things that you shared with me regarding your relationship with your dad growing up, there were some roles that I needed to fill for my children, as you've already mentioned, being there to support them, being there to encourage them, being there to provide discipline while also being compassionate and patient. And so one of the things that I learned from your experience is that I have to be flexible. I have to be diverse. I have to be versatile in parenting because every situation will not command the same reaction. There has to be some ability on my part to read a situation and then respond with the appropriate measure. When I need to be tough and stern, then I need to be tough and stern. When I need to be more compassionate and more laid back and more cuddly, so to speak, then I had to do that. And those are some things I did learn from you based on your experience with your dad. And so understanding that in a marriage, I had to take my cues not only from my daughters in terms of how to respond in a certain situation, but also take my cues from you because I didn't want them, as you said, to be afraid to come to me. And so part of me had to learn how to open myself for them to bring to me their hurts, their needs, their questions, things of that sort, so we could establish that kind of relationship that would permeate our the next few years that we had together while we were all under the same roof.
And I think it was important for you to have that because in my dad's defense, I didn't participate in a lot of different things. I didn't do anything. And so I was very, I guess, adamant, focused on making sure you girls were involved in different things so that you could have activities outside of home. I didn't do that. And because I knew I was going to do that, I was going to need for your dad to be involved, to be present, to be flexible, and to be encouraging to you guys as well, because I knew what my plan was and just making sure that he was on board with that.
All right, let's make a segue. Let's take you back to 2003 when we got to try all these new things out. So let's talk about when Naya came around and how that changed and how you all were able to meet, quote unquote, meet those expectations and any fears that you maybe weren't meeting those expectations. So let's take it to November, y'all.
So November 6th, Kanaya comes, have a baby, bring her home. I ended up having postpartum depression. So the adjustment of being at home with a newborn, life changing, it was a struggle. Um, One of the things though that Marcel introduced very from the onset, he was like, because he was actually working and I was at home, of course, on maternity leave. So we knew early on, I'm a morning person, he's a night owl. So he was like, okay, you deal with the baby in the early morning hours, but when I get home from work, I'll take the baby, I'll do whatever's needed. And of course, we have family helping us. We had my mom, we had his mom. They were either staying with us or going back and forth. But at the same time, also, my grandmother was passing. So she was ill of health. Any day, she was going to be passing. We really felt that she lived long enough for me, waiting on me to have Kanaya, and then she ended up passing on. So it was a shift for my mom. So she was doing as much as she can for us as well. So Marcel really had to step up. And so I often wondered, while I was dealing with the depression, I could see him trying to make sure I was okay. So he was asking me daily, how are you doing? You know, what's going on in your mind? What's going on with your thoughts? And sometimes I even thought about it. I said, I wonder if he's thinking, you know, man, do my girl have to deal with this later on in life when she has kids? You know, because you want to protect your children from everything. And so I think a lot of times he would ask me how I was doing to make sure he didn't have to come in and be, you know, very protective of the baby, because sometimes with postpartum depression, if you get it serious enough, you can hurt yourself or others. And so I'm sure he was cognizant of that also. I mean, how did you feel?
Well, obviously being a first-time parent, not having gone through having a wife who suffers through postpartum depression, um, it was obviously new, but for me, the challenge was, okay, I've got to take care of my kid, and whether you have postpartum or not was not going to impact that. I had to take care of my child because my child was my responsibility. You were an added layer in that. And so what that season in our lives made me do was make certain I was prioritizing you two instead of myself. So being a new parent, all of our attention is going to the newborn. But because of your postpartum, I also knew I had to be doubly certain you were in the best space possible. Understanding, having to research a bit about postpartum and trying to come to grips with where your mind was, where your mental state was, and giving you that space to heal, to recover, but also making sure Kanaya's needs were met and making sure she was being fed, that she was being bathed, that we were keeping her clean, that we were making sure she got the attention she needed as a newborn. So and truth be told, that was one of the best seasons of my life because
Really?
I
Wow.
no one needed me more than my daughter and my wife. And for me, as someone whose spiritual gift is, one of my spiritual gifts is serving, I get energized. I get energy when people need me.
So let me ask you something. Did you ever, the fact that we had a daughter, did you have different thoughts, or it was just the baby?
No, it was just, I mean, at that point, I mean, I've made no bones about it to my girls. We talked about it in the first episode. I wanted boys. I wanted sons because I've always been surrounded by females. And so I wanted girls. I mean, I wanted boys.
Gotcha.
So, but listen, once we found out Kanaya was a girl, I didn't have, I mean, I had a tinge, it's a small, very small tinge of disappointment, but I knew I couldn't change anything about it.
Well, I'll be honest. I wanted boys because I was a girl.
My God. We were like, my God.
I'm not a girly girl.
It's the first time I heard this.
Because if you know, I was not a girly girl growing up. I mean, I was overweight. Everything that I bought looked frumpy. You know, hair, I'm not good at doing hair. I'm not very much into makeup, stuff like that. And so I was like, when I had Kanaya came, they was like, oh, it's a girl. And I was like, is she healthy? Okay. And I was like, man, Lord, now I gotta comb hair. I mean, it's like, I was like, Lord, you got jokes.
Okay.
I couldn't foresee myself taking care of a girl, even though I was a girl. I won't lie.
And so the flip side of that is, again, I'm the only son, and on my mother's side, I'm the only grandson. And I have a younger sister, and I have 3 cousins who are female. So I knew how to change diapers. I knew how to prepare formula. Yes. I knew how to take care of an infant because I see my mom do it, I see my grandmother do it, I see my aunt do it. So those were things, I mean, obviously, you know, when I was young and changing my younger sister's diapers and things of that sort, I did it because, you know, I liked the baby in the house. And so I didn't mind helping. You know, things kind of changed as she got older, but we won't go into that in this episode. But, you know, and then, you know, again, when my cousins came around, you know, I didn't mind helping with diapers and formula and things of that sort. So when I had my own kids, those were skills that I already had. And so with your mom not having those skills, it was just natural for me to plug in that gap and fill that hole.
That was another reason why I wanted a boy, because I had no experience. I figured because he did, he's a guy, he could take care of a boy quicker than he would be able a girl. Not thinking about the fact that all of his cousins were girls and he's been around girls. I was just thinking of he would be the bigger asset, and being able to take care of a boy would be simple for him. And it'll give me a chance to learn, to grasp, to figure stuff out. But of course, the Lord had jokes.
So, you know, me sensing the need, again, it energized me. And so my prayer every day was, Lord, just let her get through until 5 o'clock or 5:30, whenever I got home, because I knew then I'm going to take Kanaya. I'm going to do everything with Kanaya. I'll feed her, I'll bathe her, I'll hold her, I'll get her to go to sleep, settle down until about midnight. And then I'm going to go to sleep. But by that time you were sleeping. And the good thing about you, Kanaya, was, you know, you didn't wake up too often in the middle of the night.
No.
So that was good for us.
Sleep.
Huh?
I liked my sleep.
Right. So, you know, that was good for us. And whether you had been a boy or a girl, I would have done the same thing. But because you are a girl, that helped you and me bond. And so having that relationship since you came out the womb was very important.
Which began the whole bath towel in the dryer. So your dad, when he would give you a bath, he would put your big towel in the dryer. And so he would give you a bath. So I'm literally trying to lay down, get some sleep. Then he would go out. And then the first time he did it, I didn't say anything. But about the second or third, I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, my baby got to have a warm bath towel to wrap in.
Oh, no.
Listen.
So I said, oh, my God, these girls. I said, she going to be so spoiled. Oh,
and I am. which we'll get into in a later episode, y'all.
Every time, and I did notice, like sometimes when I would bathe you, you had this look like,
Where's the warm towel?
where the warm towel? And I said, that's your daddy. That ain't me. That's your poppy. Don't look at me for that. And so as it went on, I made sure that I didn't do it because that meant that it was a special moment between the two of you. And I was
you could have done it. You could have done it.
No,
I wouldn't have been mad about it.
No.
And I'm sure Kanaya wouldn't have been mad about it either.
To me, it was time. You got to go all the way downstairs, put the towel in dry, then come up and bathe. You make sure you good. Then I got to go back downstairs and get the towel, clean the towel. I'm probably doing 7 other things at the same time. So I just let that be his special.
It's gonna be.
But I knew then, I said, oh, she's gonna be so spoiled. Oh my gosh. So I knew then, I was like, okay, he's gonna be a great dad for this little girl.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward to Kiani.
Yeah, let's talk about the big Kiki of 07 since we got jokes. We don't want no girls. Like, right?
Like, we got 2 parents on the girl.
My goodness.
So, because both times we made the choice not to know what the sex of the baby was.
And that's not true. We got the ultrasound for
You
Kiani.
right. We did. We found out for Kiani. And the reason was that is if we had to have, clothes and all of that for a boy, we were going to have a shower, all that stuff. But because you were a girl, we had kept a lot of Kanaya's stuff because we were blessed with so much stuff. A lot of the things we had were brand new, hadn't been used, but we saved it because I knew I didn't want to have just one child. I knew that. So when Kiani came, it was yet another girl. I was like, Lord, another head to comb. Oh my God.
I have more hair on my head than Kanaya does. So
still to this day.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that, again, having some experience, I understood the basics of braiding hair. Obviously, I am not a cosmetologist. And so no one's banging down my door asking me to do their hair. But I'm sorry?
We can start. Listen,
No, that's not my ministry.
Okay.
Oh, man.
But I understood the basics of washing hair, drying hair, brushing hair, combing hair, doing braids, putting on barrettes. So my job was always just to make you halfway presentable to the public. And so
you did pretty good. One of my favorite baby pictures, you put the pink barrettes in my hair. We had picture day. It's pretty fire.
About a couple weeks ago when I washed my hair, he helped me blow dry my hair. That's that. See, you know what you're doing.
Oh yeah, he's not
right. So one of the things, I've learned how the Lord uses all of our experiences to get us to a certain point. So, I mean, I had to make the most out of being surrounded by women, as I grew up. And that's just one of those advantages.
And thank God, because I ended up with postpartum again after Kiani was born. Kind of knew more the second time around. So I moved differently. I did things differently. But by your dad being familiar with your sister, combing hair, stuff like that, he could step right in with Kiani. He didn't have a problem shampooing your hair, brushing your hair, stuff like that, which helped me tremendously because he was so engaged with you girls. So
and you got warm towel too, by the way.
You did too. Yeah, did too. Both of you were getting them then. I'm like, oh, this is ridiculous now. But okay. I'm like, the oldest one don't have to have a warm towel. Just tell her to get out the shower. We could dry her out. He was like, no, both my girls. Oh my gosh.
Both of them getting warm towels.
Spoiled. Mm-hmm. But hey, okay.
We love that for us.
Yeah. So we're going to close out the episode. We thank everyone so much for tuning in. Make sure you all tune back in as we drop more episodes of Girl Dadding. And that's it.
Bye.